Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to Drawing Down the Stars. I'm Snappy, and thank you for joining me for our live tarot session today, November 16th, 2024. It's a beautiful day, and it's a wonderful evening, and we're still in that full moon energy. Let's give a shout out to everyone here in the chat. Good to see you, Gandhi. Much love, Beatnik. Good to see you, Valerie. Holler Haint, much love. Christy, much love. Good to see you, Gandhi. Daphne, much love. Biba Bowley, much love. Carly, great to see you. All right, amazing. Thank you, guys. So let's start by talking a bit about today's astrology. So we're now in the moon in Gemini, and it's the tail end of the full moon as we come out of that energy. So we're really going to be feeling this in its full intensity. And that moon in Gemini is that erratic kind of energy. In the moon, it's all about our emotions. And with Gemini, we're going to be in this restless mode. We're going to be in this mode of wanting to connect and wanting to be in that expansive state of moving out and in flow with other people. We're going to be feeling pulled in multiple directions and not 100% sure of what we fully desire. But we also have that ability to really connect with others and to be in that inspiring energy and to flow in a beautiful way and to see where life takes us. Gemini energy is beautiful, but you got to be able to ride with it, feel it out, and be open for that exploration. Now, if we talk a little bit about today's title, Actualize Your Will and Transform Reality. This is all about the magician. When I was meditating on the cards this morning, I pulled the magician card. And when thinking on this energy, I kept thinking about this call to action that the magician represents, this call to doing and to performing and to being in that conscious energy of life. But it's also so much greater than that, because the magician is the one who's in perfect harmony. They have to be connected to their unconscious. They have to be in full possession of their conscious self. And they have to be in that flow with the universe. If you're not doing all three of these, then your magic is not going to work to its fullest extent. So that magician is that one. While they are first and foremost that conscious actor, they represent this balance, this symbiotic relationship with the self, where you can be in that empowered form, connecting and fully moving and pushing and going where you're needed to go. And when you actualize your true will, what you're truly meant to be doing, when you're focusing on those purposeful things, when you're trying to spread love and community, you'll see that everything just kind of goes together and your reality will transform. It'll take on new shape. It'll expand right in front of you. So embrace this magician energy. Seek balance in your life and be that conscious force of action. All right. And I wanted to read to you guys a fun little poem. It's called Prototypes by Madison Julius Kawine. Whether it be that we in letters trace the pure exactness of a wood bird's strain and name its song, or with the brush attain the high perfection of a wood flower's face, or mold in difficult marble all the grace we know as man, or from the wind and rain catch elemental rapture of refrain, and mark in music to do time and place. The aim of art is nature, to unfold her truth and beauty to the souls of men, in close suggestions, in whose forms is cast nothing so new, but 'tis long aeons old, nothing so old, but 'tis as young as when the mind conceived it in ages past. Wow. And this kind of shows you that act of creation of art in its full totality, being that person, that force that can really give birth to idea, which is eternal and always flowing in that cyclical way. Beautiful. All right. We're now going to go to our Ganapati oracle. Ganesha Ganapati is the divine child, the Lord of beginnings and the guardian of the threshold, and the master of the spirits, the Ganas. And we ask them, what is the inspiring message this evening? Ensure that our words are heard by those who need to hear them. So Ganapati, what's the message? All right. Today's message, energetic movement. Energetic movement. Beautiful, loving energy and perfect energy for Gemini. Perfect energy for this Gemini energy. We want to be in motion. We want to be in flow. We want to be moving in harmony, being a part of the dance, performing as a member of the band in harmony with that natural music. And this idea of the energetic movement is about embracing that creative output, embracing action, being in that conscious effort of transformation, right? The magician is an active player. They go out and they engage in that dance. They create art in reality. Beautiful. So embrace movement, embrace the flow, and use your energy in that creative action. All right. We're now going to go to our sortes proper. And for those of you unaware, the sortes is a form of bibliomancy, that is divination through literature, and it comes to us from the Greco-Roman tradition. And we invoke the goddesses of inspiration, the divine muses, and we ask them to send us a message through the text. Today we're going to begin with Goethe Faust. So muses, what is the inspiring message from Goethe? By love that's scorned by all the fires of hell, and any curse that's worse piled on as well. Oh, wow. By love that's scorned by all the fires of hell, and any curse that's worse piled on as well. Just bring it all on, bring it all on, bring it all on to that nth degree, to that extreme. What's interesting about this is that when we go to those extremes, at least from that magical perspective, we always wind up on the other side of that coin. The extreme intensity of passion and desire always brings love and always brings violence in equal measure. Right? Interesting. Let's continue. We're now going to go to Magia by Alan Chapman. Muses, what is the message from Alan Chapman? Inspire us this evening. What happens then? You are back in the position of faith. You have gone from a silent knowing about the real nature of existence to knowledge of silence with the awakening. But now you have to repeat that process with this new falsehood, this greater falsehood. This is really beautiful. And this is something they talk about at length within Shaivism. I first encountered this idea in a book called The Parvati Darpana, which is by a professor I had named Harsha Videhasia. And it was talking about the philosophy of Abhinavagupta and specifically looking at the mythopoetic image of Parvati in her mirror. And what I'm getting at here is that within this understanding of Shaivism, you go from the one to unity. You have to recognize that unity, that oneness, that connection of all reality. But then you have to recognize that this oneness is also a falsehood. It's not enough. It doesn't fully explain reality. And so they have to move beyond that oneness to reaffirm creation itself, to reaffirm the individuality of forms, and to identify the many. And this is what it's meant when you gaze upon that mirror. First, they come together in that loving unity, right? In that act of love making. And then they transcend form until they become that penultimate thing, that Adrinahari Ishvara, right? The divine androgyne, where they lose each other. But it is in that losing of each other that they recognize each other. And that is why that is the most magical image within that Shaivite tradition, the Adranahari Ishvara, because that is the goal, because it is both enlightenment and diving back into creation. And it's about recognizing the unity and the individuality at the same time. Right? Yeah, all for one and one for all. Exactly. And those who know about the Three Musketeers know that that's some serious dragon literature. Thanks for saying that, Beatnik. But yeah, exactly. The one and the many, all for one and one for all, right? The unity is easy. This is why you get people who make this enlightened connection and then they go back to the real world and it's not enough, or they become all messed up about it because they haven't gone to that final step. They haven't continued to explore the meaning, right? They've settled on one thing when that paradox is far greater and far more expansive. Wow. Let's continue. L'Autrement, Malador, and other poems. Muses. What is the message from L'Autrement? Inspire us. 3 stars instead of a signature, explains Mervyn, and a blood stain at the bottom of the page. 3 stars instead of a signature and a blood stain at the bottom of the page. That's that muse, that goddess on full display, because she is always a triune form, right? She always wears many masks. She is one and many. And the blood is representative of that nature, of that love, and of that sacrifice. Blood is both love and creation, but it is also violence and death. All of it locked up in one, right? She is the 3 stars, the 3 faces, the 3 forms that beget all of the unfolding of creation, ever twinning down and down. Beautiful. All right, let's continue. We're going to go now to Don Juan in Hell, Bernard Shaw. Muses, what is the message from Shaw? You see, you have to confess that marriage is necessary, though according to you, love is the slightest of all human relations. How do you know that it is not the greatest of all human relations, far too great to be a personal matter? Could your father have served his country if he had refused to kill an enemy of Spain unless he personally hated him? Can a woman serve her country if she refuses to marry any man she does not personally love? You know it is not so. The woman of noble birth marries as the man of noble birth fights, on political and family grounds, not on personal ones. What nonsense. I'm sorry, but what nonsense. What nonsense. Like none of that is necessary. What's necessary is love. Coming together in that love, Aphrodite is necessary. And that often results in some form of long-term partnership, but none of that is necessary. And especially not for something like the state, right? Jeez. All this sacrifice for to create these ever greater forms, for what purpose? Yeah, interesting. All right, let's continue. We're going to go now to the bell jar, Sylvia Plath. Muses, guide my hand. What is the message from Sylvia Plath? When I lifted my head, the photographer had vanished. JC had vanished as well. I felt limp and betrayed, like the skin shed by a terrible animal. It was a relief to be free of the animal, but it seemed to have taken my spirit with it and everything else it could lay its paws on. Oof. When I lifted my head, the photographer had vanished. JC had vanished as well. I felt limp and betrayed, like the skin shed by a terrible animal. The skin of a snake, perhaps, shed and discarded by community, right? It was a relief to be free of the animal, but it seemed to have taken my spirit with it and everything else it could lay its paws on. The sacrifice is so great, right? Wow. Interesting. All right. We're now going to go to Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. Muses, what is the message from Aldous Huxley? The wren goes to it, and the small gilded fly does lecher in my sight. The wren goes to it, and the small gilded fly does lecher in my sight. The fly is that annoyance, but it gets consumed by the bird. The bird goes to consume the bird, or to consume the fly, and the fly is its annoying self regardless. Both have their function and their form and their way. Interesting. Yes, the wren is the bird. Wren the bird, W-R-E-N. The wren goes to it, and the small gilded fly does lecher in my sight. The bird goes on its way, but the gadfly pisses me off. Aphrodite and Dionysus. Interesting. Let us continue. All right, we're going to go now to A Sinister Assassin by Antonin Artaud. Muses, what is the message from Artaud? Inspire us. Which is finally the sole originator for matter, for movement, or for action. Whoa, what is? Element, which is finally the sole originator for matter, for movement, or for action. Element. That's an interesting choice, an interesting word. And immediately it makes me think of Shaivism and the Parvati Darpana again. You know, Shakti is that matter, is the elemental form. She is that Prakrit. And it is through that which all other things take their form, right? Movement and action, desire, that Shakti that acts upon the mind, that cosmogonic eros in the Greco-Roman. Interesting. Let's now go to 10 Plays by Euripides. Muses, what is the message from Euripides? Inspire us. Let us not speak of that. I was avenging my father. Wow. Let us not speak of that. I was busy in tit-for-tat vengeance. Right? I'm focused on this, on my duty, on what I am bound to do in this cyclical, violent struggle. Let us not hear something else. Let's focus on this. Doesn't that seem like the worst course of action? And this comes to us, right, from the play Iphigenia among the Taurians. This is Orestes speaking. We know how this goes for Orestes. It does not go well. Vengeance, when is it sated, right? When is it sated? I've spoke about this often, but at the end of Orestes' story, the goddess Athena herself has to get involved because the Furies say no, that Orestes must die for his crimes against his blood. And the only way that they can be calmed is when the goddess herself takes them in her arms and transforms them into the Eumenides. And she establishes the courts of law and ensures that justice will happen in a communal way that will overcome this tit for tat, right? And the tit for tat is so essential, right? It's so essential. How does Herodotus open up his histories? Talking about the great abductions of women, Greek and Persian, right? Medea, Helen, all of these powerful priestesses taken. And what does it always result in? Extreme violence. Trying to possess that muse. And where does it lead you? Always to that destruction. Let's continue. All right. We're now going to go to The Stranger by Albert Camus. Muses, what is the message from Camus? Inspire us this evening. Then he pointed in the direction of the group he had just left, a little man who looked like a fattened up weasel. He told me that the man was actually a special correspondent for a Paris paper. Actually, he didn't come because of you, but since they assigned him to cover the parricidal trial, they asked him to send a dispatch about your case at the same time. Interesting. A little man who looked like a fattened up weasel. That member of a journalism, right? That journalist, a paper correspondent. And it's one of the weird things in our world that often things don't get heard unless they're reported upon. They're not considered valid unless they're backed up by the power and authority of journalists. Though that's changing with online, right? And it's such a weird thing. He didn't come because of you, but they assigned him to cover the parricide trial. They asked to send a dispatch about your case at the same time. You're an afterthought. Your story doesn't even rate. Interesting. All right. The House of the Dead. Muses. What is the message from Jeremy Reed in The House of the Dead? Aha, aha, aha. And stood back as the dead materialized, searching for blood transfusions from our bank. The trench drenched crimson as they crowded round, packaged like rush hour on the underground. Both young and old in every shattered state of wound response, radiated victims, part vaporized and those burnt out by grief, pleading to be heard too early or late. And stood back as the dead materialized. And we look upon the cost of war, right? The cost of war and all this violence, all these games, right? All these love games. You know, within all of these Greek myths, it's these stories of trying to possess these great women. But then what is the cost? Nations fall, right? Cities fall. Untold destruction that continues long after the war is over. Stood back as the dead materialized, searching for blood transfusions from our bank. The trench drenched crimson as they crowded round, packaged like rush hour on the underground. Both young and old in every shattered state of wound response, radiated victims, part vaporized and those burnt out by grief, pleading to be heard too early or late. The casualties of war, right? The forgotten, that we don't care about. And in every war, I always ask, right? Are the other side still being seen as human? The great worry with any conflict is the dehumanization and the trauma, right? When do you justify your actions and you reduce your enemy to the monstrous? And then you yourself become a greater monster. You know, every war. In every war, the country who becomes the greatest destructor plays the victim first. Always. Always. And it is only victims who commit these extreme atrocities. How do you justify these actions to yourself? What do you see in the face of your enemy? Interesting. All right. Let's continue. Women Who Run with Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estes. Muses. What is the message from Christina Pinkola Estes? Remember Canto Hando, the deep song, and Hambre del Alma, the starved soul. In time, these two forces, through dreams and the women's own wild life force, rise to the surface of the psyche and break out the necessary cry, the cry that frees. The necessary cry, the cry that frees. What starts creation in the Orphic myth? What shatters the egg? Who? Ananke. What does her name mean but necessity? Right? That force of desire so strong that it shatters reality, that it causes one to commit the unimaginable, to break that shell and to be reborn, to go through that process of destruction and rebirth. And also that release, right? This is talking about the greatest, most powerful magic in the Greco-Roman tradition. And that is the power of the grief, the power of the mother. We see this on full display, right, in the Eleusinian mysteries. Demeter's cries cause the Kori to return. The winter happens, but the spring comes again because of that grief, because of that refusal to let the dead lay, right? And it's about going into that madness, into that mania, embracing the full totality of experience and letting it out in that profound cry where you ask, you cry out to the universe, why? And I need, and save me. That's the greatest magic there is, crying out to the mother to save you. All right. Let's continue. We're now going to go to Paradise Lost, Paradise Regained. Milton. Muses, what is the message from Milton? Inspire us. Meanwhile, in paradise, the hellish pair too soon arrived. Sin there in power before, once actual, now in body, and to dwell habitual habitant behind her death, close following pace for pace, not yet mounted on his pale horse. Meanwhile, in paradise, the hellish pair too soon arrived. Sin there in power before. The hellish pair of twins, sin and power. What are they doing in paradise? Once actual, now in body, and to dwell, habitual habitant, behind her death, close following pace for pace, not mounted yet on his pale horse. Interesting. Right? The cycles flow everywhere. And even in the heights of heaven, you are not removed from sin, power, and death. They are present, habitual habitants. And death on a pale horse. Look at that image again in Revelation. That's Melanoe. All right. We're now going to go to our tarot proper. But before I do, please give me a like and a subscribe. It really does make a big difference. It boosts everything in the algorithm, and I would truly appreciate it. And if you are at all interested in a private reading, please reach out to me. You can email me, Snappy, ddts@gmail.com, or you can contact me on the Myth and Lore Discord, Snappy or Lady Snappy. All right. And we are going to be using the Tabula Mundi Tarot of M.M. Aline. And we are going to be invoking the energy of Saturn and asking them to dissect our life, to cut it up and expose it upon the plate, and to show us the interconnections so we can see how we can arise above the conflicts, how we can best move and flow, how we can actualize our true wills, and what is that greater message for the community. And I had a card shooting out, so our center is already out. Prudence, hard work and due diligence, right? Staying the course, going through the effort, doing the hard part, right? Prudence is that tending of the garden. It is the nursing of the young. It is the ensuring that there is a protection here in the times when things need to grow, when ideas need to germinate. This is that power of continuing forward, having the strength to tend to what you have created, to nurture it with love and kindness, and to ensure that it's protected, to protect it from pests, to ensure it's watered, right? It's that energy of being that gardener and doing the hard work of maintenance. Let's continue. Beautiful. How do we expand upon this moment? How do we build? Where do we go from here? This is intense energy, but it is powerful and beautiful energy. The Emperor. A lot of people struggle with this energy because it is that energy of power. And that Emperor can easily become a tyrant. But that Emperor can also be the most profound actor on the earth, the great protector, the great savior in many ways. The question is where does he put his action? And is he willing to let go of the Emperor power when that time comes? Because no one holds on to that authority for very long. But that Emperor power is needed. It comes into our life when we need to take control. Yeah, there is a beehive. No, sorry, that is the stupa of Ozymandias. Or it is a beehive. It says Ozymandias. This is interesting imagery here. You know, it's beautiful. But that Emperor card reminds you that we all need to become that Emperor in our own life. We all need to take charge, to be that authority, to be that power, to speak our truth and to transform. Otherwise, other emperors will take your will and use it. So you must assert your power in your own life when the time comes, when it is needed. The key is to do so in a proper flowing way, recognizing everyone's uniqueness and beauty and divinity, right? Harming none, moving with that intention of love. This Emperor energy can save your life, can define your life, can give you the strength to do what is needed, and can protect and save those around you if you can engage it with that prudential energy, that energy of nurturing, of building the tower, of protecting the eggs, of doing what is necessary, right? Beautiful. Our old pal, Seven of Cups. We saw this a few days ago, and this is an energy I've been feeling a lot lately. Trying to build upon one's success, trying to move in that flow, and trying to maintain that harmony. What do you do when there's so many mouths to feed? There's so much neediness. How do you engage in this way where you're not overindulging or you're not engaging in the wrong way, right? If you give too much of your waters, then you will be without and you will thirst. Interesting, right? That 7 is about moving beyond the balance of the 6. And it's about falling in to that seedy nature, over-engaging to the point where it becomes problematic. You know, there is a balance with this community and with connection, right? Often the most caring people wind up giving so much of themselves that they get lost. Let's continue. Who are we nurturing? Where's this energy going? At the top of our square, we have the Princess of Cups. We've seen this energy before, and this is so beyond and beautiful, right? This is about taking that responsibility for the next generation, doing the hard work to raise her and to take care of her. That princess has all of the potential, so much potential, so much power to bring that emotional loving flow, that water of the earth, right? To water that garden, to tend those crops in the most powerful and profound way. But this energy must be supported. It must be provided for. It must be educated. She must be nurtured so that she can grow to her heights. If not, this energy can't fully develop. No wonder it is connected to this prudence. Let's continue. Wow. Indolence, 8 of Cups. Interesting. We're really seeing this energy of the cups and this expansion into that loving, flowing energy. We're really trying to build and connect in community. But there are things that are holding us back. There are struggles. You know, that indolence energy in many ways is spreading yourself too thin. Right? Too many connections again. Even greater than the debauch, where the debauch is, there's this overstimulation. There's an over-engagement. Now there's this, you're being pulled threadbare. Look at the boat. The boat is half finished. Everything is focused on that image in the front, right? You have this beautiful image, but the boat itself is full of holes and can hold nothing. It can float nowhere, right? So the energy here is about completing this, connecting beautifully to one another, not spreading yourselves too thin, engaging in those relationships that you do have to manifest them to the completion, right? And to recognize this indolent energy, that these relationships require engagement. It requires that nurturing. It requires that energy of the mother. It requires that desire, that lust. And here we have Lady Babylon as that goddess Astarte, you know, the vulture on the lion. Beautiful, right? And that lust, that strength is about being in that desire, being in that connective energy, feeling that desire to its fullest and pursuing it. And it is that that'll give us the strength to raise that next generation, and will give us the strength to be that person that can fill the holes, that can be in that loving role, that can be that providing energy. It's difficult, but we must be in that strength, and we must remember that passion, and remember that our role is that inspiration to bring that flame, right? To bring that strength, to engage those waters with that fire, to get them moving, to raise that energy up. Well, let's continue. 2 children, 2 twins. Beautiful. And 2 ways of nurturing this next generation. There's that loving flow, the cups, that harmony, that emotional support. But now we see the logic and the reason and the science, that intellectual pursuit, the high-minded mysticism, wisdom in its purest form. And the Princess of Swords is about pursuing that wisdom, right? Bringing that logic down to earth, bringing that reason into earth, bringing that justice down into the earth. And again, it's that energy that must be nurtured, that must be cared for. If this energy is going to fruit, if it's going to bring that reason, if it's going to transform reality, she must be supported. She must be cared for. She must be nurtured and allow that seed to grow. But there is great potential here, potentials for love and community and flow, potentials for new perspective, growth, understanding, and wisdom. Reason. Beautiful. Let's continue. In order to manifest this energy, to be that provider, to be the one connected to this princess, there must be a balancing. There must be an adjustment made. There must be justice pursued, right? And that justice is often an internal justice. It's about recognizing where we fall short. It's about doing what is necessary to be our best self and to strive for it, not in a self-loathing way, but in a recognizing way, in a growth way. And true justice comes from action, right? You make that adjustment and then you move in a new way. You do something about it. You change what you're doing, right? You be the change you wish to see. And the change here is very clear. We must be that provider energy, that nurturer energy, that educator energy, the one that can give to the child. That's a huge responsibility, and that always, children always require adjustment, constant adjustment. Let's continue. Beautiful. This is about, we've seen this energy just the other day. It's painful energy, but it's energy at its completion. The cycle is over. The ruination is here. We've let this run its course. You know, we've gone to the full depths of this overthinking and it's done now. And now we're seeing that the way out is that next generation. Is to focus on doing something actual, right? No longer about what am I going to do? It's about I'm doing something. And what I'm doing is focusing upon the future. Focusing upon the future. Taking actions to nurture and raise and work for that next generation. Letting the overthinking and ruination energy go. Letting this go. Right? That cycle has run its course. The 10, it can go no further. All it can do now is burn itself out. Burn itself out in rebirth, reimagination, and re-understanding. And often what I'm seeing here is that this re-understanding is going to come when we try to educate and explain. Have you ever tried to explain something complex to a child or to someone who doesn't understand? You know how much growth you will go through trying to explain and educate someone, even if they're earnest, right? But that is a beauty. That is an adjustment. That is incredible growth. To be that provider, you must become the emperor. Right? All right. Beautiful energy. I'm now going to flip my camera so you can see the full spread. But before I do, please give me a like and a subscribe. I would really appreciate it. If you found this helpful, please leave a comment. And if you're at all interested in a reading, reach out, snappyddts@gmail.com. You can find everything in the description. Okay, here we go. Let's take a look. Okay. We start with our emperor. We become the emperor when we make the adjustments necessary to take responsibility in our own life. When we recognize that we are not showing up in the way that is needed, that we need to patch our holes. How do we patch these holes? How do we transform this 8 into the 9 of gain? By doing that hard work, by being that mature, wise, actionable person, the one who takes responsibility. You know, we all want someone in our life. Part of the biggest problem that many people face is that we're all looking for an emperor. We all want someone who's going to tell us what to do and that things are going to be okay. Well, you're going to have to be that force in your own life. You're going to have to make things okay. And you're going to have to figure out what it is you need to do. Be that power. You can be this emperor. You don't need someone to manifest this energy for you. But you do need to manifest it in your own life if you wish to complete this cycle, if you wish to make this adjustment, right? If you want to actualize this potential. Now we go here to our middle, right? In order to truly take care of these divine children, these twins, these princess energies, we must become that provider, the one that can inspire and can give voice and protection. You know, the one that can do that prudence. And this requires a taking of responsibility and actualizing in one's own life and becoming that authority for oneself. Taking responsibility and doing that will energy again that we were talking about at the beginning. It may have been focused on that magician, but it's the same understanding. It's the same thing. Conscious action for the purposes of transforming your reality. That Seven of Cups, that debauch. We overcome that debauch when we focus on what inspires us. That desire, that lust, that longing for transformation, for a better world, for a new life, for that greater image, for that loving connection, for that wisdom. Desire for the greater. When we focus on that truly powerful strength of generation and creation, we can overcome anything. We can overcome that ruin. We can see this cycle play out, and we can reborn ourselves through that passionate strength and love. We can overcome this debauchery, focus back on what balances us, bring us back into that pleasure of reciprocal flow, right? We need to have the strength in this moment, the strength to pursue what we desire. When I think of that Medea energy, I always recognize that Medea doesn't stop. You know, many people finish her stories with plays, with Seneca or with Euripides. But for those of us who followed her after, we know she goes on to become the queen empress of the Medes. Her son Medes becomes the king. And she becomes one of the most powerful rulers of all time. An empress in her own right through her own power, because she had that strength, that lust to persevere through all of the ridiculous stuff. In spite of the ruination, right? Medea went through that ruin. She lost everything. She literally lost everything and had to get the heck out of Dodge, saved by the grace of the gods in the last second, right? But she continued. She was reborn after that energy. She didn't stop. She traversed the desert and she became the emperor. All right. Now we look at our crosses. That hard work and perseverance is what will get us through. Focusing on that nurturing energy, focusing on what we need to do, focusing on building and being that provider, that protector, that educator, that nurturer. This is what will overcome all of this energy. It will not only provide for these youths, these princesses, that next generation, but it will push us through that indolence. It'll give us the strength to connect to people in the way we need to be that power who can transform this energy into that 9 of gain and flow. It'll allow us to reset this cycle, to begin anew with that ace, to reimagine and try again, right? To embrace that love, that princess, to draw the logic down into the earth and to pursue reason. But it begins with that prudential energy, that actionable energy, that nurturing, protective energy, that energy that sustains and maintains the garden. And that's the message, everyone. Become the emperor. Take responsibility. Be that authority in your own life. Be that providing, nurturing educator. Support this next generation. Do what is necessary to raise them up. And this is what's going to transform everything. And be in that desire. Focus on the strength. What is your motivation? What do you want to see? Embody it. Envision it. Let that light your spark. Let that lead to you doing what is necessary to make the changes. You know, again, I keep thinking of this energy in the story of Christine de Pizan. It is in her darkest moment when she thought she lost everything, when she is forced to do the unimaginable, that she rises to the heights and becomes a philosopher, becomes a writer, takes power into her own hands, and in her own words becomes a man in every sense of the word, because of Fortuna and because of the pressures that Fortuna placed her under. But because of that pressure, she was reborn something greater. And this is that energy. Can you overcome that ruin? Can you embody that desire? Can you transform yourself and become that emperor in your own life? Can you be that provider for these energies? That security? Can you do what is necessary? If you can, the rewards are beyond great. The princesses always foretell massive growth and beauty. They have the potential to become anything, emperors and empresses in their own right. The universe completed in and of itself. It's all about taking responsibility, making the adjustments, embracing desire, raising that next generation, and becoming that emperor. Take responsibility and do the work to nurture and educate. All right, everyone. I hope that resonated with you. It certainly resonated with me. And we're going to do one final sortes, and then we'll call it an evening. We're going to go to the Tao Te Ching. All right. Muses, what is the message from the Tao? Inspire us. Therefore, a sage has said, I will do nothing, and the people will be transformed of themselves. I will do nothing, and the people will be transformed of themselves. And again, we're back to the Delphic maxim. Know thyself. Know thyself. All right, everyone. Peace and love. And I hope I see you again tomorrow for more live tarot. Try to know yourself. Take care.